Welcome to this Arnall-Culliford Knitwear tutorial on steeks. This video is part of our Year of Techniques series, 12 knitting projects to help you upgrade your knitting skills. This month's project is for the Oorik Tank top by Mary Jane Mucklestone. This tank top is knitted entirely in the round, and the neck opening and armhole openings are created by cutting open a bridge of stitches called a steek. So if we look at the inside of the knitting, we can see that the steek has been cut open and it's been reinforced with a line of crochet up either side. I'm going to show you how to cut open a steek with and without reinforcement, because actually in a sticky Shetland yarn like this, reinforcement isn't necessary. I'm then going to talk you through picking up the stitches ready to work the edgings like the neckband and the armbands, as well as how you can tidy up your ends and sew down the edges of the steek to keep your project really neat and tidy. Here we have a knitted swatch to demonstrate how we work our steek. So we have here the 8 steek stitches which act as a bridge between the two sections of knitting where we want an opening to appear. We have each end of the steek a background coloured stitch, which is the blue, and then in the centre of the steek we have 2 adjacent stitches in the foreground colour here, which is the oatmeal and the pink. So this marks the centre of our steek, which will be cut open between those 2 stitches. One of the benefits of working with the steek and colour work in the round is that it gets rid of the need to weave in your ends. You can see here that we've changed colour yarns in the centre of the steek each time, and we can, before we cut open the steek, just snip those ends off. You can imagine in a project with lots of colours, that's a very satisfying thing to be able to do. We then turn it back the right way out. And for a project like this, which is worked in a Shetland wool, the yarn is very sticky, it holds to itself really well, and you actually don't need to work any reinforcement whatsoever. So you just need to take your scissors, making sure they're nice and sharp and ensuring that you're not catching the fabric underneath. You literally just cut between those 2 centre stitches. So if that was our armhole, it's now opened up. We're then going to be folding those 4 steek stitches on each side back, and the edging, which will be a ribbing on this tank top, is going to be picked up in between the first pattern stitch, which is this one here, and the first steek stitch, which is that one there. And the steek will then fold back to the wrong side of the work. And that Shetland wool is really sticky, it's not going anywhere. You can give it a bit of a stretch, a bit of a pull. The stitches aren't going to do anything, and even if the edge ones get a little bit rough, you've got 4 stitches there, and knitting just doesn't unravel side to side. Stitches will drop from top to bottom, but it doesn't unravel side to side, so that edge is really very stable, and it would very quickly start to felt to itself with wear. So many knitters like a little bit of extra reassurance when they work a steek, and if you are using a slightly smoother yarn, then this is definitely a good idea. So here I'm going to show you how to use crochet to stabilise the edges of your steek for you. So again, we will be cutting up the centre between those 2 centre stitches that are in the same colour. And we're going to work a crochet reinforcement that will join the outer edge of that central stitch to the side of the stitch next to it. So we're going to be joining these two legs, or half the stitch on each side along this column with a row of crochet. So to do that, we take a yarn in a similar weight to our project and we make a slip knot onto our crochet hook. Again, the crochet hook is about the same size as the knitting needles in the project where the size isn't massively important. And then starting at the bottom, I'm going to work up this side here. So you're going to be passing the hook under one leg of the center stitch. That's that one there, I think. Oh no, that's the one next door. One leg of the center stitch and one leg of the adjacent stitch. So on our crochet hook we've got our slip knot and then the two legs of those adjacent stitches. We then wrap the wool around the hook and pull that loop through the stitches and through the slip knot as well. And then we move one stitch further up the steek and do the same again. So we're going under one leg of the center stitch and one leg of the adjacent stitch. We wrap the wool around the needle, or the hook rather, pull it through and then pull it through the existing stitch. And then again we move one stitch further up under one leg of each of those adjacent stitches, wool around, pull it through again. And we work like that all the way up the steek. When you get to the top of the steek, break your yarn and just pull it through that final loop. So you can see we've got a row of crochet all the way along, joining those two adjacent stitches, and we're now going to turn it round and work the other side of the steek. So now we're going to start at the top and work down to the bottom in exactly the same way. So we have a slip knot on our crochet hook and we're going to join one side of the center stitch to one side of the adjacent stitch. Wrap the wool around and pull through. Pull it through the slip knot as well. Oops. Then under. Through the last stitch. And then as before we break the yarn and pull the end through to fasten it off. So we've now got 2 rows of crochet either side of the very center of the steek, and what we're now going to do is to cut up the middle of the steek. Just as before, make sure you're not catching the rear of the fabric or your fingers, and then cut carefully right the way up the middle. The crochet reinforcement there just holds the edge of the steek together. It adds an extra layer of joining of those stitches to make them even less likely to unravel in any way. Once your steek has been cut open, the next job is usually to pick up stitches for the edging. You're going to pick up stitches in between the final steek stitch here and the first pattern stitch here, and we're going to pick them up by putting the needle straight through the fabric to the back and pulling a loop through. So we put the needle through, we wrap the wool around it. Holding the wool tight helps it to be pulled through more easily. There we go, we've picked up our first loop, and you then work down the column, picking up stitches all the way down, each time holding it tight. Once you've picked up the required number of stitches, you'll see that the steek stitches lie automatically to the wrong side of the work, and on the right side you're just seeing the patterning up to the edge of the edging. You then work backwards and forwards or in the round on your edging until that's completed. And then all that remains is to tidy up your ends. Obviously you can weave in the ends of the crochet reinforcement. It can be woven in down the back, just a little way. And the other end. It's just really to keep them out of the way more than anything else. And then if you wish, you can also whip stitch the steek edge down onto the fabric so that it doesn't pop up. And that's very simple to do. Here I'm going to use that yellow yarn again. So we'll tuck our end in on the wrong side of the fabric, the inside of the steek. And then fold it over. And just catch in the back of a stitch on the wrong side. Go up through the steek. Oh, sorry. And do that all the way along, catching on the wrong side, up through the steek. And then once it's all been sewn down, you can just tuck the end back in, down the inside a little way. And snip it off. So our steek edge is caught down and all tidy on the right side of the fabric. I hope that's taken the fear out of steeks for you. If you're feeling unsure, knit a swatch and cut it. There's really nothing to worry about. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you'd like to find out more about a year of techniques, do visit our website acknitwear.co.uk and try something new today.